Ask everyone to take their seats, please. The meeting of the Louisiana Tax Commission is hereby called to order. The meeting is being held at the offices of the Louisiana Tax Commission at 1051 North Third Street, Suite 225, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The date is Wednesday, March 19th, 2025, and the time is 9 a.m. Please call the roll.
Chairman Rousseau, Commissioner Leone,
Here.
Commissioner Romit,
Here.
Commissioner DeGidry,
Here.
Commissioner Frazier.
Here.
5 present and a quorum.
Okay, there being no business, we'll move on to the approval of minutes.
Mr. Chair, I move that we defer the minutes.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. I'm sorry to apologize. We will defer the minutes. Next item is change orders.
Shandrika Banks, on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission, today we have a total of 907 change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 878 and place 29 in pending status. Staff requests approval of these change orders.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the 878 change orders and place 29 in pending status for reasons given by staff.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Shandrika Banks, on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission, today we have a total of 43 prior pending change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 38 and keep 4 remaining in pending status and deny 1 per the assessor's request. Staff requests approval of the prior pending change orders.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the 38 prior pending change orders, but keeping 4 in pending status and denying 1 per the assessor's request.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Shandrika Banks, on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission, today we have a tax sale cancellation for Cattle Parish due to being duly assessed. Staff requests approval of 1 tax sale cancellation.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the 1 tax sale cancellation.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Morning. If you'll be testifying in any of the Good morning. If you'll be testifying in any of the appeals this morning, I'll have you stand up at your chair. I'm going to administer an oath to you. I'll indicate to you individually to affirm the oath, and I'll have you state your name. Please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Ben Jacobson, I do.
Thank you. Y'all can have a seat. Appraisers, same exercise. If you'll unmute, turn your camera on. Danny? There we go. If you'll raise your right hands, I'll indicate to you individually to affirm the oath. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Josh?
Joshua Laverne, I do.
Paul?
Paul Bennett, I do.
Reed?
Reed Huval, I do.
Cody?
Cody Lowry, I do.
And Danny? Are we having connectivity issues for Danny? Danny, can you hear me? Mr. Blanchard? Figure out the connectivity when we get to that appeal. Get on the first one, doesn't it? Okay.
Okay, the first appeal we'll take up today is the appeal of Big V Properties Incorporated versus Orleans Parish Board of Review. Docket number 232217626, 1900 Valen Street in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Good morning, James McKeeta with Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. After reviewing the property, our initial prayer was that we maintain the value at $1,127,000. On-site visit was done. We did not go in the interior, but the exterior does have some condition issues. The assessor was willing to do a settlement. I could not get a hold of the taxpayer, but we were willing to settle for a total of $949,000. That would be $647,500 for the land and $301,500 for the building. And basically what that was using the current land rate, which was adjusted in 24, and keeping the same building value, which is basically just a salvage value of about a little over $20 a square foot.
Thank you. We'll hear from the LTC appraiser, Josh.
Good morning, Joshua Laverne, LTC appraiser. I appraised the property 1900 Valence, utilizing only the cost approach. That approach produced a value of $753,000 with $647,500 attributed to the land value, and the remaining $105,500 attributed to the improvement, for a total of $753,000.
Questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the settlement offer from the assessor's office of $949,000 total value. That'd be a land value of $647,500 and a building value of $301,500.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we'll take up the appeal of Myrtle Place LLC versus Assessor L.G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-72065. And this property is located at 3909 Benville Street in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Any taxpayer present?
Yes.
Good morning. You can go ahead and make your case.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you all for your time this morning. Yeah, so for this property, the appraisal from the Louisiana Tax Commission was at 1.645 million. You know, that's closer to where we were with our estimated value of 1.54 million. But would like to point out a couple issues or you know, things that we think in the appraisal perhaps weren't taken into consideration with regards to our property specifically. First off, 3909 Bienville is currently about 30% vacant, and they use the income approach, so that would definitely have a very large impact on the income approach value that they used. And to lease that space is going to take a lot of tenant improvement allowance, and so I think that needs to be taken into consideration, which is why our value may be a little lower than LTC's appraisal. I would also point out that the comps used in the LTC appraisal, most of those comps are tiny spaces. If you look through those comps, a lot of them are under 1,000 square feet at higher price points. Most of our spaces at 3909 Bienville are well over 2,000 feet, and many of them 4,000 to 6,000 square feet. And so their average of, I believe, 19 and change on what they use for the income approach per foot, 19 and change per foot. If you throw out all those smaller spaces, the comps end up averaging about $18 a square foot for spaces that are actually similar in size. And you know, I'm not sure if this matters, but I'll just point out that, you know, we're an investment company. We lease these properties out. A lot of these leases are sometimes triple net leases. And, you know, when you're neighboring the property directly next to you, that's almost an identical property, has half the assessed value, it puts us at a competitive disadvantage because a tenant's going to pick them every day of the week if their, you know, tax bill is 50 cents a foot and ours is $1.50 a foot. So I just wanted to point that out. I'm not sure if that matters, but it does to us because it puts us at a disadvantage, and it doesn't seem fair and equitable for an identical building next to ours to be assessed at half of what we're assessed at. So those were the main things to point out on this one as to why we do agree with the LTC appraisals, but did have some things to point out that we believe make it higher than it probably should be if that information was available. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll hear from the New Orleans Assessor's Office.
Good morning, James Makita, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. 3909 Bienville is a 21,548 square foot building, 42,000 square foot of land. Originally appraised for our office is 2,390,000. It was we typically ask for market income and expenses for each property to try to come up with true vacancies and rents. None were provided, so we used market rents for like properties. Doing that, market rents, 5% vacancy loss, 30% expenses, and I used a 10.82 loaded cap rate, gave a higher value of $2,914,400. But our prayer is to uphold the $2,390,000. I do not know of the property. I was not informed of any information about the property saying it's half assessed, so I can't speak to what property that is or if it's a like property.
Thank you. We'll hear from the LTC appraiser, Paul Bennett.
Paul Bennett, Louisiana Tax Commission. I personally appraised the property at 3909 Bienville Street with an undisputed land value of $840,000, an improvement value of $805,000, for a total of $1,645,000. This was developed via the income approach.
Thank you, Paul. Questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Mr. Bennett, if he would, please.
Sir.
In just reviewing your income and operating expense statement, or getting to that, in your income capitalization approach to value, you mentioned annual lease rates range from 1371 to 3732, and that the subject is currently listed for lease at 2196. However, you average rate of 1982. Where does the average come from in your calculation?
That's basically an average of the lease comparables that are listed below that. That's basically an average of all those. So it's a
not-
market-based average.
Okay, it's not the average of 1371 and 3732.
No, sir. No, sir. It's an average of all those below.
And you go on to mention about your operating expenses generally being 45 to 70% of effective gross income, supported from confidential annual income and expense data available to yourself for similar properties in a 2018 benchmark. So you utilized an operating expense of 55% based off of that?
Yes, sir.
Any more questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, one more question. So for the taxpayer, there's a notation that the 2023 valuation of this property was $2,180,000. Does that seem accurate to you? And if so, did you appeal that in the prior year?
I'm not aware of that. I think that was prior to our ownership of this property.
So you acquired the property in,
I believe it was 2023. I think late 2023. I'd have to look it up.
okay, because I think the only information we have as far as sales, as provided in what was sent to us, was that the last purchase was in 2013 for $2,050,000. I think that's per the assessor's notes. Does that seem accurate to you on the assessor side?
Give me 1 second.
I would just say, I think what happened here is we've inherited a tax appeal from the previous owner. I'm not certain, but it's still under like the ownership name that you read. Myrtle Place is not our ownership entity, so it could predate our ownership, I guess, this tax appeal.
So do you know what the actual, you mentioned vacancy now at,
It's 30%.
And do you know what it was as of January 1 of '23?
Yeah, it was 30%.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. What was y'all sales price on it? What did y'all pay for it?
I'm not sure that we can share that information. I know there's confidentiality provisions in the agreement.
Okay.
Can the city tell us what the previous tax bill was?
The 2023 valuation was 2,180,000.
Any additional questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion. Really both appraisals, it's hard to, go against really either one of them. The assessor side used CoStar, the LTC side used, some, actual, properties right there near them. So to be honest with you, I kind of averaged out both of them. Since we don't have an actual income and expenses from the property, none of that was submitted. So I'm going off a total value of 2.279700 for the total value. That'd be a land value of 840,000 and a building value of 1,439,700.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we'll move on to Smothered Covered LLC versus Assessor L.G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-73082. And this property is located at 2940 Elysian Fields Avenue, New Orleans, Louisiana.
Mr. Jacobs?
Sorry, can I just get clarification on the prior one? What two numbers did you are you able to share which ones you averaged on that? Oh, you're saying within the LTC appraisal?
On both appraisals.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, I certainly concur with Mr. Frazier's, and my calculations were similar, and so averaging a rate of 2196 per square, which is consistent and not far off from what the LTC had used. The average vacancy, the average operating expense, and the average cap rate comes right into what Mr. Frazier's proposing.
Understood. I guess I just wanted clarity on if he was averaging the LTC appraisal of 1645. Anyway, I'll look it up after and figure out. Thank you.
We've ruled. Move
Yeah,
on to
thank
the
you.
next appeal, please.
Yep. All right, so 2940 Elysian Fields. This property is a former Waffle House. We purchased it from Waffle House several years back. The LTC, the LTC's appraisal at 369, what we believe is high, and we were asking that the assessment be at 226,000, essentially just land value, due to the fact that this property was completely gutted by Waffle House before they moved out. We actually have a pending lawsuit against them for ripping out this property and gutting it when the few days before they sold it to us. The appraisal that LTC did not go inside that property. I don't believe it reflected the interior condition of that property, which is furthermore illustrated by the comps that they used in their appraisal. All three of them are buildings that appear to be completely in commerce, and also in several instances in better locations. And so, we feel like our value of 226 is more in line with what this is worth. And the other challenge is once a building is gutted the way this one is, to bring it back up to code and get it back into commerce, it's basically worthless. I mean, it's going to be more expensive to retrofit this than to scrape it and build new. And so we're asking that our value of 226,000 be assessed for this property, given the condition of the building and the, again, the appraisal being based on buildings that are in commerce, built out, and currently generating income. I guess that's it for that one.
Okay, we'll hear from New Orleans Assessor's Office.
Good morning, James McKedo, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. Again, this property at 2940 Elysian Fields is a formal Waffle House. Property is vacant, gray shell condition with walk-in freeze and cooler and 28 parking spaces per the taxpayer's website. It was purchased in March 2022 for undisclosed valuation. It had an expired listing on the property for $650,000. With our original valuation for the property was at $441,500. The Board of Review upheld that decision. We offered Mr. Jacobson a settlement offer for the LTC value at $369,000, which he rejected.
Okay, thank you. We'll hear from the LTC appraiser, Cody.
Morning, Cody Lowry, Louisiana Tax Commission. I personally appraised the property at 2940 Elysian Fields. Using a fair market analysis, we came to a total market value of $369,000 with an undisputed land value of $165,200 and the improvements valued at $203,800.
Thank you, Cody. Questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, for the taxpayer, so with the assessor stating a purchase in March of 2022, is that your purchase date?
That's correct.
So you're saying at that point that the previous owner had basically scraped everything down, left it in an unusable form?
That is correct.
So for Mr. Lowry, the assessment that you did, was there an on-site inspection? Did you see that in that condition?
No, sir. I could not access the interior of the property. You can see from the photo that I've taken of the property itself. There's a gate that runs around the property. I couldn't get into the building. I could only get so far into it, so I had to make a street appraisal.
I see that picture. Thank you.
Any additional questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the LTC staff appraisal at land at $165,200, improvements at $203,800 for a total of $369,000.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Drew, it's Danny's turn. Hey, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Danny?
I can, and I apologize. I was having some audio challenges earlier.
No problem. Danny, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Daniel Blanchard, I did.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we'll take up the appeal of Dix Pacifica LLC. Docket number 2322173-084, and this property is located at 5500 St. Claude Avenue.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes, Commissioners. This property is similar to the previous one. This was purchased. It was a former Walgreens space that Walgreens had installed Chinese drywall into, and has since been completely gutted to the studs. And it's an EFIS building. Again, I would argue that the building is worthless. It needs to be scraped. To renovate an existing structure like that is going to be more expensive than building new. Not to mention, it doesn't even conform with the city's zoning anymore. You'd have to go through lengthy conditional use processes to even be able to use the building again. So again, I would just state that the building is worthless here. I would also point out that in the appraisals, or in the appraisal rather, The comps don't appear to be gutted and also to be in significantly better locations. There's hardly any businesses in, this is located in the lower Ninth Ward. There's hardly any businesses in this area. So again, I would just argue that this property is worth just the land, and not very valuable even as just the land. Thank you.
Okay, we'll hear from New Orleans Assessor's Office.
Good morning, James McKee, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. Property at 5500 St. Claude is currently vacant and boarded up. Our original value was at 404,300, with the land rate 110,600, improvement value 393,700. Went to the Board of Review. The Board of Review upheld our valuation at 404,300. And at the date of appraisal, the property was listed for sale for $750,000. And in the listing, it said in shell condition with no known structural issues. So we're requesting that the BOR value of 404,300 be upheld.
Okay, we'll hear from Danny, LTC appraiser.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Danny Blanchard, appraiser for the Louisiana Tax Commission. I appraised 5500 St. Claude Avenue. The property is a 22,122 square foot corner site that's signaled that forms the southwest corner of South Claude and Fats Domino Avenue. It's gutted condition as previously testified. I formed a cost approach, arrived at a value of $373,800, a sales comparison approach, and concluded $431,600. A reconciliation of those two value approaches led to $425,000 with an allocation of $110,600 of undisputed land and $314,400 of building.
Thank you, Danny. Questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, for the taxpayer, when did you purchase this property?
It was probably 2016. And again, I guess just in reference to sales prices that are thrown out there, we're more long-term holders. These properties are listed for lease and for sale. We throw a sale price on it, doesn't mean it's worth it. It's been on the market, as you can tell, both the previous one and this one for over 2 years. The expectation is not to sell it, it's really to lease it. But if someone comes along and has to have it, we put a price on it. So I just would comment on that. That's not clearly not what it's worth or it would have sold in the last 5 years that it was listed for sale.
So is it in its gutted condition at 1/1/22?
Correct.
And for the assessor's office, that valuation at that point was $275,900.
For 23 valuation, yes, 275,900.
Any additional questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I call for a motion to accept the Board of Review value of $404,300, which is $110,600 land, improvements $293,700, total of $404,300.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we'll take up the appeal of Benjamin D. Jacobson versus Assessor L.G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-76050. And this property is located at 2327 Octavia Street.
Mr. Jacobson.
Yes, thank you. This property, I guess I'll keep, this one's quick. I'm not sure where, so anyway, this property was purchased a few years ago for $430,000. It was an arm's length transaction. I don't think there could be a better comp than the comp itself of purchasing this property. The appraisal uses comparables that are in much better condition. This property has been neglected. It's in poor shape inside. When I purchased it for $430,000, it's as a rental property. I underwrote it based on it being assessed at 430,000 because that's what I paid for it. It doesn't get a tremendous amount of rent. And, I mean, assessing it at 25% higher than what I paid for it, it just puts me really in a tough position to where this investment barely even makes sense. And so I would just point out those two factors as one, it was purchased for 340 not too long ago. Or sorry, 430 not too long ago. And the condition of the interior, I do not believe was taken into consideration in the LTC's appraisal.
Okay, thank you. New Orleans Assessor's Office?
Yes, good morning. We looked at the property at 2327 Octavia Street. Our original value was $505,000. That was upheld by the Board of Review. The LTC appraisal landed at a value of $525,000. Our independent appraisal landed at a value of $528,500. Additionally, the property was purchased for $430 on February 2022. However, it subsequently was listed for $675, and in the listing, it was indicated that the property was in very good condition. Also, after that time, it has been listed for lease 3 consecutive times that it did have successful leases. Listed in very good condition, excellent condition, the first lease in December of 22. Second lease, very good condition, leased for $4,500. Third lease, also in very good condition, listed for $4,500. Based on the listings that were agreed upon or listed by the owner, we're assuming that the condition is very good as they stated, and we're just asking for our original value of $505 to be upheld. It appears that that previous sale was a below market rate sale.
Okay, thank you. We'll hear from Josh, LTC Appraiser.
Good morning, Joshua Laverne, LTC appraiser. Inspected the property at 2327 Octavia Street. The sales comparison was the only approach utilized in my analysis. The approach produced a value of $525,000 with $180,000 attributed to the land and $345,000 attributed to the improvement.
Thank you, Josh. Questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I call for a motion to accept the Board of Review valuation of $505,000, which is $180,000 land, $325,000 improvements, total of $505,000.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of 5001 Farette Street, LLC versus Assessors Errol G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-76102. And this property is located at 5001 Farette Street.
Thank you. This property at 5001 Farette Street is a 5,000 square foot retail center. I guess this one is so far out of line with what the street supports as far as comparable sales. I'm not sure if it would be helpful to read the comparable sales on the street. But I do a lot of business on Farette Street. This property is assessed at over $400 a foot. I don't believe there's another property on Farette Street assessed at over or that has ever sold for or assessed at over $250 per square foot. And this creates a very undue hardship on the tenants that are in there. In fact, most of them have gone out, I think, because the taxes have been so high. And as far as the LTC's appraisal, the comps used on there are on completely different locations. One of them is on Magazine Street, which is, significantly more valuable than Farette Street. So that's one comp that they use. The second comp is in the French Quarter. I don't know how the French Quarter is comparable to Farette Street. So I don't know how that got in there as a comparable. And then the third comp is a space that's, I want to say, 500 or 600 square feet. Or 600 square feet. These spaces here, 2,500 square feet. I don't know how you compare those two spaces because one's more of a price point rent and the other one's maybe on a per foot basis. So again, I understand that the Orleans Parish and the LTC both have values in a similar range. If it would be helpful to read these comparable sales that are on Ferret, the last 3 or 4 properties that have sold on that street, or at least at the time of this assessment. If that's helpful, I'm happy to do that. But to think that something on Ferret Street should be assessed at over $400 a square foot, it seems like some sort of a disconnect to me. I'm not sure where it's coming from.
Thank you. We'll hear from the New Orleans Assessor's Office.
James Makita, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. The property at 5001 Ferret Street, we had original value of $2,835,000. This is a newer building. The certificate of occupancy was on 1/2017. The taxpayer supplied no income and expenses, so anything we done with market rents were market rents, I'm sorry, not actuals for the property itself. So what we did offer to settle at the LTC value of $2,320,000. The taxpayer rejected that offer. Yeah, so we're requesting the settlement offer, $2,320,000.
Okay, thank you. We'll hear from the LTC appraiser, Josh.
Good morning, Joshua Laverne. Once again, I inspected and appraised the property at 5001 Ferret Street utilizing cost and income approaches. The approaches produce values of $2,520,000 for cost and $2,320,000 for income, with $413,200 attributed to the land, and most weight was given to the income approach, and we settled $2,320,000.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, for the taxpayer, is this property located between Jefferson and Napoleon on Ferret?
Correct.
And you've had it for how long?
This is actually a client's property. This is the only one out of the ones we're here today about. He has owned it, I believe, for 6 years.
And for the assessor, you note that the 2023 valuation was 2.8 million. And I assume that wasn't contested.
Yes, $2,812,500. And if I may, CoStar had the sale at, from February 2018 for $3,125,000.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from the commission? Hear none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the value paid for by Orleans Parish, $2,320,000, land value of $413,200, improvements $1,906,800, supported by the comparability and the income approaches on average.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Okay, our last appeal of the morning is the appeal of U1 Onion LLC versus Assessor LG Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-76111, and this property is located at 3300 Magazine Street.
Hear from the taxpayer.
Thank you. So this property is a mixed-use building on Magazine Street. Just to quickly point out, I guess, issues with the LTC's appraisal is that the comps in the LTC's appraisal are much smaller commercial spaces than we have, which generally rent for much higher price per square foot. And also, I don't believe it took into consideration that about 15 or 20% of our building is residential, which would have lower rents as well. And so for those reasons, we believe the LTC's appraisal is higher than it should be, and are asking for a assessment closer to what our request was, which was $775,000. Thank you.
We'll hear from New Orleans Assessor's Office.
James Makita, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. The property was purchased April of 2017 for undisclosed purchase price. Once again, no actual income and expenses were provided for the property. Our original valuation for the property was at $1,388,100. The taxpayer came in during open rolls, and we lowered it to $1,260,000. Also in our appraisal, you could show a list of comparable assessments on magazine, and they're pretty consistent as far as that goes. This is a mixed-use property, and it does have a short-term rental license according to our website. So we actually offered something a little bit lower than the LTC came in at 1,245,900, which is 365,800 for land, 880,100 for the improvements. Once again, for the total of 1,245,900, which the taxpayer rejected that offer.
Thank you. We'll hear from the LTC appraiser. Reed?
Reed Huval, Louisiana Tax Commission appraiser. I appraised the property at 3300 Magazine Street. Came up with a total value of 1,250,000, 365,800 for the land, improvement value of 884,200 for the improvement. I did the cost approach and the income approach. On the cost approach, it's pretty self-explanatory, but on the income approach, I utilized 3 lease for that year of January 1 of 23. And if you look at them, I tried to stay towards the bottom of the range because of the size. And if you look at the 3, I understand what he's saying. Usually on the higher buildings, there are a lower value of rent. According to these, that kind of didn't take place, but I tried to stay on the lower end to compensate because the square footages of the larger buildings are just, they weren't really that many in the market that I could utilize. So I felt these were the best, trying to stay on the lower end to compensate for the size.
Thank you, Reed.
Thank you.
Questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I call for a motion to accept the City of New Orleans offer for $1,245,900, which is $365,800 of land, $880,100 improvements, total $1,245,900.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Is there any other business to come before the commission today? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Sure goes quicker when Russ